You know, anytime that you're the person, like the MCOM commander, the G9, you turn around and say, "Who can I talk to about this?" Then you point to yourself and say, "Oh, it's me." I'm Lieutenant General retired Leslie Smith. I work for General Brown and Nzinga Curry. And now we're going to start our first panel. It's titled Operationalizing Installations to Support the Mission Today and Tomorrow. And as our panel gets seated, this panel will discuss the roles installations play in defense of the homeland and the readiness and lethality of our warfighters. Leaders will discuss how installations project power to fight and win the nation's wars abroad while also deterring aggression by supporting border protection missions at home. We have CW5 retired Phyllis Wilson here to moderate this panel. Chief Wilson serves as the 5th Command Chief Warrant Officer for the U.S. Army Reserve. She's the president of the Women in Military Service for America Memorial Foundation and serves on the boards of the Army Women's Foundation, Allied Forces Foundation, and she's also an AUSA Senior Fellow. Phyllis, the floor is yours, ma'am. Let's give her a round of applause.
Well, good morning. It is a good Army day, I must say. I do work at the Women's Memorial where we cover and we tell the stories of the women of all branches of service, but I am a soldier for life and I love being here. I know that I saw CSM Escobedo earlier. He's on his way in. Oh, here he is. Move out there, Sergeant Major. Come on.
Go Ranger. Sorry,
well, we're ready now. I want to give you a quick overview of who we have here on the panel, and then we're going to move into a few prepared questions for our August panel, and then we'll open up the floor again for questions. So put your thinking caps on and be ready for some hard questions for this incredible panel. I'm going to start first with Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Weimer. He was sworn in as the 17th Sergeant Major of the Army in 2023. His most recent assignment was serving as the Command Sergeant Major for U.S. Army Special Operations Command at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Throughout his career, he has served a variety of positions, from team member to Command Sergeant Major of Special Operations, Joint Task Force Afghanistan, to Command Senior Enlisted Leader to U.S. Special Operations Command Central. As the Sergeant Major of the Army, he is the Army Chief of Staff's personal advisor on matters affecting the enlisted force. He devotes the majority of his time to traveling. I'm sorry about that, but you get to see the soldiers, and that's the best part of the job. He gets to observe the training and interact with soldiers, Army civilians, and their families. He sits on a variety of councils and boards and makes decisions affecting enlisted soldiers and their families, and is routinely invited to testify before Congress. And I'm sorry about that. He is the public face of the U.S. Army's non-commissioned officer. Look at this face. Representing the NCO Corps to the American people in the media and through business and community engagements. A military kid himself, he called multiple locations home throughout his youth. He enlisted in 1993 and became a Green Beret in 96. He is a graduate of Norwich University, receiving a Bachelor of Science degree in Strategic Studies and Defense Analytics. Sergeant Major, thank you for being with us today. Lieutenant General retired Frank Helmick served 36 years in the U.S. Army. And I noticed this, that you have the civilian attired individuals on the flanks and the militaries on the inside. I feel like we went backwards here, but I'm good with where we are there, sir. Thank you for joining us. He was the commanding general of America's only airborne corps, the 18th Airborne Corps, HUA, the nation's largest military installation, Fort Bragg, and he also served as the deputy commanding general for operations with United States Forces Iraq and commanded the Multinational Security Transition Command, Minstiki, Iraq, and the North Atlantic Treaty Alliance training mission in Iraq. He was the assistant division commander of operations for the 101st Airborne Division Air Assault, when troops under his command successfully ended the hunt for Uday and Qusay Hussein. He also served as senior military assistant to 2 deputy secretaries of defense. General Helmick joined SOSi in 2012 and serves as its senior vice president for SOSi's mission operations, where he leads global teams to provide the U.S. government and its allies with solutions that are globally responsive, operationally focused, and cost-effective for mission sustainment. Sir, thank you for joining us today. Brigadier General Kirk Dailey is responsible for overseeing the development and coordination of a $12 billion plus, that's a billion with a B, annual budget of programs, requirements, strategy, and guidance pertaining to facilities, military construction, energy and water resilience, real property asset management, and activities that support the Army installation strategy and improves the quality of life for soldiers, civilians, and their families. He serves as an advisor on a wide range of issues related to organizational policies, practices, and procedures, governing installation management, and collaborates with Army commands, Army staff, other services, and again, all the way up to enjoying that conversation on the Hill. He graduated from Purdue University with a Bachelor's of Science in Construction, Engineering, and Management, and earned a Master's of Engineering degree in Engineering Management, the University of Louisville. He enlisted in the Army Reserve in 1990, and in 95 received a direct commission to second lieutenant. In his civilian career, as he is an Army Reserve soldier, Brigadier General Dailey serves as a construction division chief in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Louisville District. Sir, thank you. And last but not least, and I'm glad I saved you for last as you came trucking in here, Sergeant Major. He currently serves as the Command Sergeant Major of U.S. Army Sustainment Command, a role he assumed in June of 2022. So he has some experience in the role. Ask him some hard questions, please. Enlisting in 1994, CSM Escobedo has held numerous leadership positions, including Command Sergeant Major for the Combined Arms Support Command, Brigade Command Sergeant Major to United States NATO Brigade in Germany. Look at the installations he's seen, right? And First Sergeant to Headquarters and Headquarters Company, 75th Ranger Regiment. Is deployed extensively in support of operations Iraqi and enduring freedom. He's a graduate of the Sergeant Major's Academy and holds a Bachelor's of Science degree with a concentration in Management Human Resources. He has numerous awards, including 3 Legions of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars, a Ranger Tab, and it sounds to me like a partridge in a pear tree. So thank you all for being with us. I'm going to give each of them a couple of moments to make their opening remarks. We're going to start with Sergeant Major.
Good morning, ma'am. Sorry to the audience that had to listen to all those bios. In particularly mine, I cringe. It's so weird. Hey, no, an important topic today. I appreciated, getting here to hear the tail end of General Wilson's comments. I hope you get a sense from his keynote, the scope and scale. Because much like in my recent testimony and just about in every office call I do over on the Hill, the scope and scale is massive. It is massive, right? And it's easy to get lost in one single topic: barracks, CDCs, privatized housing. You're easily consumed by those. But so one of the things, and you'll hear me talk about it today, I hope, through some of the questions and answers, is I'm trying to make sure we're not all staring at the same one problem, right? If you've seen one installation, you've seen one installation. If you solve a problem at one installation, it may or may not be relevant to another installation. Lieutenant General Jones knows that like better than anybody in this entire discussion. And so what I've done is kind of pick myself up a little bit and looked at it again from the macro level, and like, who's looking at range modernization, right? Who's looking at ASP modernization? Who's watching railheads? Who's watching, we've been talking about employment, things of that nature. How are decisions made on employment that are that are, affecting potential the ability to train 24/7 at our installations. How are our agreements with local communities and encroachment concerns? Are we modernizing a facility and an installation that we can't train at anymore in the next 5 years? How does that affect readiness? And so we've got an amazing, talented group of leaders, both uniformed and civilian, that are staring at all of these. And somebody has to make sure we're looking at, we're seeing all the sum of all of them, if you will. Kind of like the old saying, you miss the trees for the forest, or vice versa. So that's kind of where my headspace is. I do spend a lot of time in barracks. I do tour a lot of CDCs. But I've started to spend quite a bit of time in motor pools and talking to range operations, and looking at company costs and maintenance ability to one of the other really important questions we had from a former tanker. Thank you.
General Dailey.
Well, as an Army Reserve officer, it's been an honor to serve with SMA and across the not only the DA staff but also in the installations enterprise. And one thing that I think is a critical part of that is we think of our Army installations as the 104 installations that serve as the Army's home that General Jones works through so ably, but it's more than that, and that's been one of the aspects of this position as the operations director, is to get to see the installations and really the infrastructure across all of the not only the 3 compos but the total of 7 land holding commands, and with that, just as SMA mentioned, it's not a one size fits all type of scenario. It is also understanding the requirements and then the prioritizations across land holding commands, across the compos, because not only do they things vary across installations, but across all of that. The one thing that so having come from a background with the Army Corps of Engineers and having over 30 years of direct experience with military construction, so I had at least could hit the ground at a slow jog, when I took this position. But the one thing I came to appreciate was the programming, the planning that goes into it, and just how long that takes. I also heard it said that we do not, from a programming perspective, we don't have a credit card, and so we can't put bills on. We have to fund it in the year of execution, and from a budgeting standpoint. But the reality is, we kind of do have a credit card. It's called deferred maintenance, and that interest comes due, and it's not a low interest rate. And so the challenge that we have is in a resource constrained environment, how do we make the absolute best of that using the AI and our systems to make sure that we're making the best investments, not only from the senior commander standpoint and a prioritization, from Army senior leader standpoint, that prioritization, but also just how do we keep the lights on and be the Army's home that we need to be. And so it's a great opportunity. I'm certainly excited to be a part of this very august panel, and looking forward to your questions. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. So it is truly a pleasure and honor just to be here and be part of this panel. So let me set the stage in regards to what ASC does. So Jorge Escobedo, the Army Sustainment Command, Sergeant Major ASC. So ASC is a major support command under Army Material Command, AMC. And we really had the responsibility for introducing those enterprise capabilities to the point of need, both from the joint strategic support area down to the tactical point of need. And the way we do it is by integrating, synchronizing, and delivering those key enterprise sustainment capabilities to build readiness across the tactical, operation, and strategic levels. We do that not only for Army, but also for our joint and multinational partners. But how do we do that? We do that through installation logistics support, enterprise logistics support, and then also the dynamic employment Army preposition stocks. With that builds into continue to help transforming our Army installations to better support our soldiers and also our families. But also what it does is deliver ready combat formations and war fightings. So ASC is a global organization. We spread across 20 countries, 32 different states. The composition about 42 Central Issue facilities, CIS, which are responsible for issuing our soldiers with the equipment they need. And then we also have 78 logistic readiness centers, LRCs. And then we got 7 Army Field Support Brigades. And then we got 20 Army Field Support Battalions. But we played a critical role in a strategic power projection. So by introducing AMC capabilities, we assist in the power projector operations to be able to ensure that we continue to leverage our 25 mobilization, 4th generation installation, and our 24 power projected platforms by leveraging our LRCs, our battalions and brigades, but also our installation transportation officers, serving key tasks to be able to do those deployment operations, because we understand our nation's ability to win in combat is our ability to rapidly and effectively deploy and mobilize our troops. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to participate on this panel. Looking forward to the questions that you guys have. Great to see some of my old buddies here too. Look, our Army installations, they're not a sexy thing, right? It's not it's the first thing. It's the first thing that a soldier and family see when they join our team. First thing. And so as you walk on an Army installation, you look for how it is, how it's going to be. Did I join the right team? Did I make the right decision to be in the Army? And the key emphasis as a soldier, you're looking at quality of life. You're looking at how my family's going to live there. You're looking at how I can train to do my job. And we have been in the past managing shortages. It's always the Army installation that takes the cut in the resourcing. We have to change that mindset with our leaders. We have to change that mindset with our congressional leadership that funds us. And we have to unify our efforts, because we, the United States Army, cannot afford to fall further behind at installations. The war fighting, the training that must be done, not just at the CTCs, but at the home station, is critical. If you just looked at what they're doing in Ukraine today, we are so far behind at home station training for drone warfare, for example. And so you magnify that problem, that challenge that we have with CONUS-based installations and OCONUS-based installations. And I've commanded both, much like many of you here have commanded both as well. And you've got severe limitations on what you can do, where you can train, the hours you can train, both in the United States and overseas. So we really have to take a close look at that and come up with some innovative solutions and start acting now. We're done with assessments. We're good at that. We know exactly what we need to do. So now we need to do it. So looking forward to your questions.
Are you fired up yet? So SMA, earlier you said, and this is so true, when you've seen one installation, you've seen one installation. We've all served in a myriad of installations, some that have great family readiness and family programs, and others that are left wanting. So when you do travel, and you mentioned it in your remarks, but besides the barracks and besides some of the other things, what are some little known areas of an installation that you have started now, like lifting up and really looking under the hood, if you will?
What I've found, a technique that I use when I travel, I try to get off the beaten path. Just like I don't like to go to DV days, it's CTC rotations. I pack a rucksack, I grab an OC, and I go spend 3 days and 2 nights living in the dirt with no agenda. Drive me here, pull up the map here, who's here, where's, listen to the morning update, listen to the evening update, make a decision where we're going to go from there. Because again, the chief and the secretary have charged me with get out there and really let me know, read in between the lines of the sit reps, if you will. This is a very military savvy forum here, so you know what that means. But I will tell you, I usually go to the E8s, first sergeants. That's my network, if you will, and it's a pretty doggone good network. They will shoot you straight. They will tell you where they're struggling to train and take care of their family members at that installation. There's themes, there's trends across installations, and we know most of those from from articles and places where that stuff gets published and posted. But then there's other unique ones like CIFs. Sergeant Major Escobedo mentioned CIFs, and you'll think, oh, I haven't heard about CIFs for a while, so I won't look into CIFs and modernization of CIFs, which is a big deal for readiness. Then you'll end up at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Next thing you know, CIF is a big deal there. Where does it fall in the FIP? Where is it a prioritization? Huge initial entry location for us. Then all of a sudden I find out I need to look under that rock a little deeper, and then we get into CIFs, and we're doing some pretty neat CIF modernization right now, because it's not all solved by MILCON. That is not the solution. We heard about that a little bit earlier. So that's usually my strategy. If I go in with a bunch of preconceived ideas of where and what the installation struggling with and where, I'm usually setting myself up for a bias that's not always true. First sergeants will tell you the truth.
I love that. General Helmick, what kind of role do you see contractors having in efforts to modernize installations?
Yeah, just to kind of put it in perspective, there's a lot of my friends out here, buddies out here that do the same sort of thing that I do. I joined a company after I left the Army. I didn't retire because I never worked so hard in my life. Believe it or not, in the private sector, you actually got to work hard, and you don't have a lot of people to do your stuff. So you got to do it yourself. The private sector, believe it or not, has a hell of a lot of smart people out there, a ton of smart people. And they're doing a ton of innovation, leading edge things that in the Army, we just didn't have the ability to do some of that stuff. So my thought is, how can we, U.S. government contractors, help the Army thicken what they want to do in the future on installations? We bid on a lot of contracts out there that support installations. And one of the things that drives me absolutely freaking nuts is this thing called lowest price technically acceptable. Right. So, you want a command sergeant major, and you can afford, a private. Both can do the job, kinda. Not really, sergeant major, but you know what I'm saying.
We understand the analogy,
you pay for
sir.
the private. So that is something that we really got to take a look at. And look at the best value. What kind of organization brings the best value? That's one thing. Number two, contractors can help deliver smart solutions to the problems. To think ahead, rather than doing sustained maintenance or deferred maintenance or no maintenance, we could do predictive maintenance. There are things you can do. And the General Wilson talked about some of these things. This Internet of Things, right? Sensors you can put on things. Different knowledge-based management, the use of AI. We do all those things in our company today as second nature. We don't even, I'm a kind of an old hat with a pen and a piece of paper. Everybody else manages a $500 million business on this thing right here. And the Army could do that. And we, government contractors, can help you do that. The other thing I would just like to highlight and mention that contractors can really help establish and solidify some of these training issues, Sir Major, that you're talking about, that you're talking about on the ranges. I just can imagine how we are training our people on home station, Fort Bragg, wherever, Fort Drum, in Hawaii, Oconus, on the training of drones. And drones is something that I'm really, I've done some work in Ukraine with drones. And if we don't get our act together at home station training on drones and have the ability to train drone warfare at home station rather than just at CTCs, we're going to be behind the power curve when we're called to go do something next. Talking to the Ukrainian guys just recently, last week, as a matter of fact, they won't even use our drones. They don't want our drones. They're producing 50,000 drones next year by themselves. So that's something that we have to get better at, in my mind, and contractors can help that. And then just to sustain the base operations and at the power projection platforms that we have, contractors can thicken that for us. You know, the military turns over, and then contractors could be the continuity there to help and scale if there's a crisis. And I know we use those guys at Fort Bragg, and we use them in Italy as well, the contractors. But let me just say this about, you know, the Army's making progress. We're not sitting around waiting for shit to happen, right? The Army is making progress in this arena. And I remember this quote that Lou Holtz said about Notre Dame football when he was a coach at Notre Dame football. And I can equate this to where the Army installations are today to enhance warfighting capability. Goes something like this. We're not where we need to be. We're not where we want to be. But thank goodness we're not where we used to be. And we've made a heck of a lot of progress. Do we have a challenge ahead? Damn right. Do we got the right team in place? Yes, we do. We just got to get the funding, the leadership, and the vision locked in, and we can move forward.
Thank you, sir. General Dailey, given you have the two roles, both in the G9 and on the civilian side with the Corps of Engineers, you look at some of this from a slightly different lens, perhaps. So I'm curious to know what your views are on ways that we can collaborate with some of these civilian acquired skill sets that we bring to the fight with the Guard and Reserve in the Army to really optimize installations.
So I remember when shortly after the chief was confirmed about a year and a half ago, within a month, he and the secretary had scheduled an hour and a half, which is an extraordinary amount of time for the chief and the front and the Army senior leaders there to talk about MILCON reform and what can we do about that. That's the level of importance. And I remember I got there early, like we're supposed to, and I was sitting across from the chief of engineers, Lieutenant General Spellman at the time. And I said, you know, in my wildest imagination as a construction, you know, coming up in construction, having 30 years of experience, I said, if I ever got to the point where I could do something about it, that would be pretty awesome. And here we are. And so we came up with a list of 20 items to either explore and not just admire, but really figure out how we can get after those. And in the last year and a half, and really we were done fairly shortly thereafter, we got after nearly every one of those, and we are continuing. The one thing now with the new administration and the acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for Energy, the Installations and the Environment, has convened a MILCON reform effort that's going to cross OSD. And that is looking, like you mentioned, sir, as far as at our industry partners, there has got to be a better way of doing this. And what are the things that prevent the contractors, and whether it's on the acquisition side and the contracting side, because we hear it from them often, what are their frustrations? But then also just things like we have our own building code for everything, even as as innocuous as concrete. We have our 90-page specs on concrete that I'm pretty sure the International Building Code has probably figured that out. That is just one example. But the Federal Acquisition Regulations, which probably started out about this size and now is this size, and they were all probably good ideas at the time, but it's an example of the death by 1,000 cuts. And so I think that we have this real window of opportunity to do something about it, not just nibble at the edges, but to really get after this, so that what we build is not 2 and 3 times what it would take to build on the outside. And then one last thing, and so again, it goes to from civilian skills. The one thing that I have recognized is that we tend, the old saying, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. And that is our design contracts are set up to do that exact thing. Have you done work for us before? So that when we have an opportunity to innovate, like we did at Fort Bragg with a net zero project, the contracts that we had available were somebody that didn't have net zero experience. That to me is just a travesty, and something our design contracts are not set up to innovate. That's what we have to get to, and not this sole reliance on have you done the job before, because we will just continue to get what we've always got. Unacceptable. And so I think we have this window of opportunity, but sometimes bringing those civilian skills into and then allowing at all levels, and the Army does a great job with this, is allowing opportunities for the Compos 2 and 3 to come in, whether it's to the building or to the commands, and for whether it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, like I have been nearly so as I complete my tenure here. Those bringing those civilian skills to the table to think at things a different way. Not that the Army's ever been accused of admiring problems, but along with the teammates is just bringing other perspectives to the table, and then whether it's civilian acquired skills, or quite frankly, where with our industry partners on the design construction industry, as well as even our other public partners when it comes to those communities that surround our installations. And forums like the Association of Defense Communities. I spoke at a panel there 2 weeks ago on this very issue. That is where it's a collaboration across that it's going to take to get after the challenges that we face.
CSM. So Army Sustainment Command offers many day-to-day services to our soldiers, such as dining facilities, which I do love, uniform issues, laundry, transportation, lodging, of course, and so much more. So supporting 82 installations around the globe, how would modernized installations impact the mission of your command?
Thank you, ma'am. So I'm going to stick to the SMA's point in regards to the Central Issue facility, because one of the things that we need to really understand is our soldiers to have the right equipment to be able to perform in combat. And that's linked to delivering ready combat formation and warfighting. So right now, the current practices that we have in the CIFs are just not unsustainable. And what we try to do now is right-sizing 42 of our CIFs. And really right-size is just eliminate a lot of the equipment that is never going to get issued. Eliminate some of the excess legacy on the equipment. But the other thing to identify is that equipment that our soldiers need to have to the remainder of their career. So we call retain issue. That equipment gets issued to our soldiers when they graduate from their first training location. So by the time they get to the unit, the only thing that we're responsible to do is to sustain them, but also just issue those regional items and then unit-specific items. But the other thing too that we realize that our system, our platform that we able to get to track that equipment is really antiquated, it's legacy. So what we're doing right now is we transform into a new platform that is going to allow us to get some predictability and some precision as we look at equipment, end-to-end supply chain visibility to make sure that we also have the right funding associated with that. So by the time we get to our CIF, now we can retain those high 10 demand items. We can properly support our soldiers. And it is a low demand item, they can go to a direct order, goes to a warehouse, and it goes directly back to the CIF. So that facilitates an ability to really target our CIS. But the other thing too, that is the modernization piece. As we modernize, equipment becomes more durable. So that means that does not become a high demand item. So all that system allows to do that. But as we look at the theaters CIS continue to be completely different because we need to make sure we had the right equipment in those theaters to support those locations. And then the other thing too, we had expanded operations both in the Europe and OR in Korea. So do we have the right equipment, especially as we're looking at extreme cold weather equipment? So by doing that, we're allowed to be able to clearly make sure that soldiers are equipped. The other thing too, man, I just kind of want to touch about in regards to contracts, in regards to the MFGR and power projected platforms. So one of the things that we have learned both in the 20th century when we deployed both to World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and recently during the Gulf War, there was tremendous amount of gaps and challenges to be able to modernize and deploy our soldiers. So the Army has invested tremendous amount of efforts to be able to identify those 25 MFGI, 11 primary to include Hawaii, and then 14 contingency to include Alaska and Puerto Rico. And then also the rights infrastructure for the C2, which is First Army for Division East and West, to provide that oversight, and also bring the Compo 3 to provide those resources as we kind of see the units deploy, if they raise the support in those locations, and also identify those 24 power projected platforms, both 16 Konos and then 8 Okonos. The Okonos are Hawaii, Alaska, Korea, Germany, Italy. But one of the things that we had done is leveraging our contracting partners. So as we're looking at SDDC, the Surface this Deployment Distribution Command, they bring the contracts that are going to facilitate deployment, develop relationships to make sure that we have enough personnel to be able to do that within the contracts perspective. But as we look at the power projected platforms, using the contract vehicle to be able to ensure that we have the search requirements to be able to support those operations. So we actually have search requirement plans for every single installation with 42 different services that whenever it's time to escalate or to be able to activate those services, we can digitize that contract and we can activate that contract capability to be able to get to that projected power projected platform. So thank you, ma'am.
I think the CSM has had a lot of coffee this morning.
He brings that all.
You have so much energy. It's impressive. I have a question for the SMA. Can you discuss what installation changes or improvements, in your view, would most impact retention and recruiting? And how would this impact readiness?
Okay. Let me give you an answer that's not a standard 3x5 card answer. I think it's a combination. And I, IMCOM doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I'm going to give them a shout out on the work they've done that General Wilson alluded to in his statements about being able to see ourselves. We have, again, I'm going to tell on ourselves a little bit. We have not been able to see ourselves by installation like scorecard, if you will, like real time, updated regularly, automated. We're using data-driven capabilities to do this, and then visualization tools to display this for IMCOM, AMC, and the senior commander at that installation, which may be the actual most important person that needs to see that. Haven't been able to do that until this past year. It's huge. So to be able to answer your question by installation, I now have a place to go that I can take that data and I can compare that to retention data. I can actually compare that to the plethora of surveys we take on a regular basis and everything else. And I think that's important for everybody to understand, that we are using data like we never have before, not to admire the problem, but to implement changes. And it starts with that senior commander. General George is passionate about this. He was a senior commander at JBLM. He was a senior commander at Carson, like he feels this. Like we have to empower those commanders to call balls and strikes, to have hard conversations with IMCOM about why they want to prioritize certain things in their FIT plan, and then argue with FORCECOM and everyone else to defend why their list is the way it is. And I think it's huge. So I think it's a balance between workplace quality of life and family quality of life. And what I'm seeing from soldiers right now, because we've have for at least the past 2 solid years, adjusted and prioritized family quality of life. I mean, huge full court press on CDCs, huge full court press on working with our privatized family partners, with some accountability stuff, both for us and for them. Huge effort and investment and prioritization on unaccompanied barracks. Now the soldiers want to see something about their workplace. They want to see some motor pools fixed. They're talking to me about their 10K lifts that are reaching life cycle. They're reaching life cycle, and now we have to invest in them again. And they were originally a Band-Aid for the new motor pool that was coming that didn't come because it was a bill payer for barracks or for something else that was a quality of life issue prioritization at the time. And so what I'm starting to see is the balance come back to workplace matters as much as where I'm living or where my family's living.
And if I could dogpile on that, the other thing, so on top of the facilities and being able to see ourselves from a facility standpoint, the one thing that I appreciate that what General Jones and his team did was the being able to see across all of the installation support functions, as well as just all of the services. And so we track those in the installation status report. And so that's one system, but it is just a large number of different things that are tracked. So one of the things that General Jones had his team do, and has really, again, helped us see ourselves, is be able to not just what those are and then what the levels of service are, but he tracks it back to the MDEP level, the funding level. Because really what it comes down to is we will prioritize and then we will resource what we prioritize. Being able to see what level of service that you will get if you fund something at a specific level, whether it's green to red to black, what that is, being able to see that way, because really what it comes down to is when decisions gets made, we have to be able to articulate what the risk is. And so what has been developed and is really now a best practice across the Army is being able to tie the outcome with the resource and how it fits together. And so that has really helped us see ourselves.
And I can't help myself. I spend a lot of time in trouble. These are projects we're talking about here. I'm not supposed to say if I say it C and then I pause and then say R, I don't know if it counts as saying them together, but these are multi-FIDEP projects. Like General Formica is back here, and it's always so great to see you. But like when I went to the How the Army Runs course, and I really started to dig into our fiscal situation and how the process works, these are unprecedented conditions for us. And so trying to manage that portfolio across from Korea to Poland and everything in between over multiple FIDEPs without predictability is a massive undertaking, and I have a whole new appreciation for it.
ASMA. So one thing in regards to, so the other thing too that we do now is we tie all the key stakeholders. And what I mean is we have this model called the DAMIL PFP that as we modernize, so we introduce new formations, so new capability, we follow that model is doctrine, but the F is for facilities. So now we have these life cycle management commands. So what they do is as the Center of Excellence kind of come with new formations, new ammunition that require new ammo points, or new ammunition require new ranges, or new equipment that requires different motor pools. Now everything starts to get within that DAMO PFP, and those life cycle management command, which belongs to Army Material Command, they come together to make sure that we look ahead, that we start funding, they start planning to make sure we have the right resource and the right facilities as we modernize the Army.
Question from the audience. Are there exercises current or planned in the future that train contested operational deployments from our installations, i.e. cyber attacks, targeted attacks, and protests?
Yes. So FORSCOM runs tabletop exercises regularly. And, you know, not to get too far in the weeds in this environment here, but yes, you can be confident they do. And they bring all stakeholders to those tabletop exercises. And General Pappas, I will tell you, has recently taken this to a new level. Like, we have to be able to see ourselves. We know there is no more sanctuary. And actually, there hasn't been sanctuary for a while. So that matters for us to be able to mobilize. And this is a national, like, from organic industrial base to contractor teammates to, I mean, like, this is a national endeavor. And then that's how we're being approaching those tabletop exercises.
And well, not a exercise in the sense of what we do at our CTCs. The Black Start exercise program that is congressionally mandated, but also then integrated throughout the compos and land holding commands. And when I first came in about 2 years ago, when a Black Start exercise would come up there and Fort Pick-a-Post, there was one in particular that says, I don't know if I want to take all those offline. So Black Start exercise for 8 hours during the middle of the day, turn the energy from outside off, and how for the critical facilities that have been identified, are you able to keep those running, right? So that is taken on a far more critical aspect as we look at things like cyber, or as an example, and where this is shown up is during Hurricane Helene. And we had 2 installations that had previously conducted successful Black Start exercises. And shortly after power was off, they were up within an hour. The other installation that had not done their Black Start exercise, it was days. And so that is absolutely critical to get after what you're talking about as far as those exercises. And so the funding associated with it and all that, and having, again, as from Louisville District with responsibility for the Fort Knox, Fort Campbell, Fort Knox, and then Fort Hunter Liggett are 2 installations that are able to operate indefinitely without outside power. And so that is a level of resilience that we are working toward throughout and with OSD funding, which is better than Army funding, because theirs, not ours. Well, they probably took it from us in the beginning. It's not attribution, please. But no, those ERSIP, that Energy Resiliency and Conservation Investment Program, has been huge to ensure that we're able to get resiliency across our installations and be able to operate without power for extended periods, especially for our critical facilities.
I'd just like to highlight what Sergeant Major Army said about, tabletop exercises. I had a chance to participate. Contractors were invited to participate into a joint staff Indo-PACOM exercise that spoke specifically about contested logistics. And if we're doing exercise, I know what General Pappas is doing. I know Drew pretty well. If he doesn't invite contractors to that thing, because the contractors, as you mentioned, Sergeant Major, would be there when a surge capability is needed, I think we're short-sighted a little bit. We got to open the aperture, make sure that the contractors do get, certain contractors, whoever, do get invited to these exercises, because they can provide the surge capability, the continuity, a lot of experience to these things. And that's what Indo-PACOM did, which was very, very good. It was run by the Joint Staff, by the way. So there is a initiative out there to do those sorts of things that you're talking about.
Yes, sir. So great point. So one into the SMA's point. So yeah, just last year, the force can just execute a mobilization deployment, rehearsal and concept rock drill. And then that was from going from a competition to a conflict in a contested homeland. It brought all the key stakeholders from the headquarters, the Department G357, the G4, AMC, MCOM was there, SGDC, the Reserve Component, National Guard. In regards to the contract, sir, so one is you completely right, sir. So what we do within ASC is because we have a log cap team, and a lot of the contract will be local contract will be log cap, but we follow that venue, bringing all the log cap primes to make sure we validate the searching requirement within the 42 services. So we do that, sir, to make sure that, one, to your point, we're completely transparent, we make sure that we validate that they can provide that services. And the other thing too that we do to be able to validate those internal exercises, the CTC rotations, the EDRIs, the no notice and notice deployment, those are exercises that will continue to validate our ability to mobilize and deploy our forces. Thank you.
Here's a question about the Army ERSIP execution. How does the Army maintain a positive glide path for ERSIP execution with the potential impacts of inflation, tariffs on both material and technology? Easy question, sir.
That was for Sergeant Major, right?
No, your name's on there, sir.
So, interestingly enough, for the Louisville district is the execution district for ERSIP program writ large across the globe, and so that allows for that centralized management, kind of decentralized execution model, allows then to take a look at what are best practices in one that can be applied elsewhere. But let's face it, this is more of an acquisition question that is going to involve things like economic price adjustments, and will the possibility at any point in time of things costing more, and then to what degree do we leverage both the competition and then how the contracts are intended to work, which is the risk onto the contractor, but it can't be all on the contractor. There is a certain amount of shared risk that we have. So I don't think there's an easy answer on that one. In terms, how do we make sure that we are applying the latest technology and not just the original technology that we had when we kicked off the program? That is, so we'll leverage our industry partners. The other thing that I want to talk about, and that is something that especially with General Jones and his leadership, as well as our industry partners from the privatized utilities, because quite frankly, they've done more of these ERSIP type of projects than we have. And so we're learning from them. And what started out as a good idea to build a MILCON project and then transfer it to a privatized utility, some of them came back and says, "Hey, we don't want what you're selling. We want to do it because we can do it better than you can, or faster, or it's our network. We bought it. We're providing it. We provide that service. It's up to us." So we it took quite a bit of convincing, especially of the contracting officers, even more so the lawyers. No offense, but once we got that has kind of been a game changer to ensure that, back to what General Helmick was saying, was having and making sure that we are leveraging our industry partners, leveraging industry for the latest and greatest, the best ideas, and then rolling those into the program continuously. And then that way, having a centralized management under one district then allows not every district has to learn the same lessons over, each of them. We learn it one time, then we integrate. We learn it one time, then we integrate, and keep doing that. So I think not sure if I answered the question. If there's a follow-up, you can see me after this, but hopefully I've answered that question.
This one says it's for the SMA. Of course it is. It says, how is home station training ramping up, and what is the effect on lethality? And I think as we look at this more from an installation standpoint, home station training is like not the same at all of the different locations, right? So can you talk about that?
Sure. Well, commanders are getting after this. I alluded to that before. Every commander is going to solve this problem a little bit differently at their installations. And just like we're trying to be able to see ourselves better when it comes to, installation facilities management and the FIP side of the house. We're also trying to build those scorecards to know where are installations training in certain warfighting functions. To General Helmick's point, to be honest with you. I'll use Fort Bragg as an example. I was down there yesterday. It is really hard to train with your UAS at Fort Bragg. And that is not the case at other installations. And so if we've identified that, then we know that, hey, we've got to get after that, right? There's local community interests involved in that. There's FAA, you know, I mean, but we have all those partners, both congressionally, both within the local community. We have those. And so now that is an effort for that commander and for the Army and a little OSD help, because a lot of that's joint, especially with airspace management. We can move and we can try to figure that out. But then that also helps us with our investment strategy, because if we can't get to yes, then we need to know, well, then that's going to cost. It's going to have a different cost associated with them to be able to train. And I'll give you two examples, two real-time recent examples that, frankly, I'm super proud of. Lethal Eagle. So the 101st is going back to the field. And I don't mean going back to the field for a week. These are 30 to 40 day field problems with the division headquarters in the dirt. All sustainment happens in the dirt. That division's lethality is increasing at a speed we have not seen, I would argue, probably since pre-GWAT, because that was not the focus during GWAT. Our Marne division, 3rd Infantry Division, with I think it's Marne Focus. I think that's what they're calling it down there. Forgive me if I have that incorrect, but Marne Focus, they're going to the field for 40 days. Sustaining a division in the dirt for 40 days, heavy brigade, by the way. No, I'm not saying the 101st is a little easier to sustain in the field. It's got heavy helicopter requirements. Helicopters require a lot of maintenance, but you see where I'm going with this. Like, we are truly testing where we're at, right? Can't be afraid of being evaluated. Can't be afraid of failing, because that's where you learn the most. But then we're actually learning what it truly takes to sustain a division in the dirt, to truly implement mission command at home, not from your headquarters, but from a jump talk or a mobile talk out in the dirt at home. And so by the time they send troopers and units to a CTC rotation, which frankly is the Olympics, that's the Olympics for us, right? We're going to spend the money and the time to take you to NTC, to JRTC, to Hohensfeld, or even a JPRMX in the Philippines in support of USRPAC. You were ready, because you were able to train your lethality at home station.
Yeah, look, I agree 100%. What Sergeant Major Army just said. You know, the number of repetitions that you get, the muscle memory that you get at home station training, if you do it right, you know, you're not going back to garrison or whatever every 30 minutes or whatever, that you do the contested logistics to make it difficult. It should be more difficult in training than it is in actual combat. Right? That's the way we need to kind of, I think we need to kind of approach this. And I'm glad to hear what the Sergeant Major's saying there. I did not know that about the 101st, my old outfit. I mean, that's great. It's going to take consistent, dedicated leadership to get that muscle memory going. So when you do go to a CTC and you do the training at one of those locations, you get, you're just tweaking around the edges. And then when you go for real, you're not sending somebody back that and telling a wife that she doesn't have a husband because, you know, the training wasn't done correctly or wasn't done enough. I've done that too many times, and it's not a good feeling.
Yeah, thanks for that, sir. There's leadership now that know the questions I'm going to ask when I show up, and they usually revolve around an FM called FM7-0, and it's training management, and we've gotten serious about this again in the last 20 months. Serious, probably more than that, to be honest with you. But again, we're finally starting to remove the symptoms of COVID, and so really the last 20 months we got serious about this. And when I ask, you know, back to first sergeants, battalion level sergeant majors and commanders, hey, how much time in the next 9 months are you training at night? And when nobody raises their hand or speaks up immediately, then I know I need to go a little further with a discussion about training management. Because families deserve predictability. Troopers deserve predictability. And so you ought to be able to look out. If you've got a CTC rotation coming up, and we know when they all are, you ought to be able to tell me, if you truly want to see yourself, what all your fancy dashboards are saying is how much of it is nighttime lethality. because we are charged with being the most lethal force on the planet at night. That's our test. That's our Olympics. And I'm starting to see the mind shift change back to that as the scorecard. Now that is hard. That is really difficult, but it's only difficult when you don't think forward enough, like 6 to 9 months, like setting up reverse schedules so that families know, hey, all of the 4th week of the month of August, we're doing reverse schedule. Like we're gonna train at night. We're gonna do. You're a sustainment organization. You're gonna do nothing but night driving around your home station at night under knots. That takes hours of reps and sets to be really good at. If we can't do that in our sustainment units, we can't actually survive past 72 hours in a fight. And so those are the type of things that I focus on when I go down and talk lethality. And there's usually fun conversations.
Question for anyone. Deferred and preventive maintenance. It perpetually takes a backseat during the budget process. What are some practical suggestions from this panel on how the Army can change this major cultural hurdle? Simple, right?
Let me lead with my chin here. What gets funded is what gets done. If you don't have the money to do any kind of maintenance, you're not going to do any kind of maintenance. I think the Army needs to look at getting rid of what we don't need. We got a lot of stuff out there. Do we need everything? Fix what we need. Fix what we have. Fix what we have. Get rid of the stuff we don't need and build what we need. And on the maintenance thing, using these smart sensors to predict failure on a piece of equipment, whether it be an HVAC, whether it be an engine, or whatever. Those, and you guys know this too. Those things are available. We just got to maximize utility of it, not only at the power projection platforms that we have, but at every installation in our military. We got to have a clear mandate, and we've got to get the sustained funding to do the job that the American people have asked us to be ready to do.
Yeah, so one of the things we're doing, sir, in regards to eliminate some of the equipment that we have across our formation. So we have these programs called the R2E, the Rapid Reduction of Equipment. So we got 14 locations across the major divisions. So what we're doing is we have this system that identify that excess. And as we're doing the TIC, or the transformation contact, is linked to the MTOS. So what is happening is creating these documents to be able to eliminate that equipment. But we have windows within those divisions to help commanders. Very easy, just come and bring the equipment as it is, and we'll take it and we'll divest it, and we'll send it to the right location. In regards to everything that you're doing within the sensors, completely agree in regards to the readiness. So one of the programs that the Army Material Command has is called Operational Readiness Program. What it does is they're committed to make sure that we continue to improve readiness across our formation, especially tactical formation. So we have identified some depot flyweight teams from the depots that they'll go over to the locations. And then what they'll do is not only they provide depot type of maintenance, but also assist our maintainers to improve their capabilities by doing over-the-shoulder trailer. Now, it's very tailored to make sure that we tailor those engagements to be able to use that analytics predictives, but get down there when doing the CTC rotations and then prior to a deployment. But the other thing too is we're targeting those older type of equipment. Now, we're looking at the Abrams, the Bradleys, the Hemmets, and the FMTVs. Those are high heavy trucks and also vehicles. And in regards to using that as sensors, so we had this thing called MDO maintenance, kind of looking at echelon. We had the right maintenance associated with those formation, but also using technology innovation. We had this joint manufacturing technology, COE, down in Rock Island. So what they're doing is they're doing advanced manufacturing, kind of you reverse engineers to be able to produce parts, the ones that we authorize to produce parts, and develop a reverse Revelo kind of repositor. So now when they validate the process, you use the same 3D printers, and then you can produce that part at location. You can start, focusing about damage repairs, fabrication at the point of need, not to be able to eliminate a current supply chain, but also to augment. And the other piece too, we're working some telemaintenance You talk about Ukraine, so one of the things that we have learned on Ukraine is the telemanagement. You don't have to have those logistics assistant representatives, subject matter experts on the front of the line. So now you have that system that can have not only our maintainers, but also our users to be able to walk them, to be able to connect, to be able to do some battle damage repair at that point. Yes, sir.
And then just real quick, one of the things Congress has also gotten, I don't know if they want to say tired of hearing about this from the standpoint, but have, I think in the last NDAA, as I recall, there was a ramp up of the FSRM funding, that Facility Sustainment Restoration and Modernization funding, from where the Army is at just under 2% up to 4% over a period of time. Now that was on the authorization side, so appropriations a whole nother thing. We are grappling with that, with the to try to assess how to work within that construct. And then back to something you said, sir, and that is the facilities that we have. One of the things, especially with a previously increasing leasing bill, while we have space available in our facilities, but not necessarily being able to see ourselves, like you were saying, SMA. And so the team, my real property asset management team, worked with industry, developed a tool called the Real Property Space Availability Tool. They were looking ahead because this was more than a year ago. And if you think about it, a tool like Zillow for Army installations, and not just installations, but really even across our Compos 2 and 3, and having briefed the folks, the DASD for Installation Modernization Resilience, Mark Cinder. He liked that tool so much that he wants to expand it to across DoD. And what that Real Property Space Availability Tool then is allows us to see space that's available and then make sure that we're making use of all of our space, and especially in light of the return to in-person work, and being able then to see what's available, and then a path and a process through an XORD we're working through to request space through senior commanders, and then get approval to be able to operate anywhere. And then it also makes sense to see, when we're making stationing decisions, what kind of space is available, not just administrative space, but then it goes to some of the other stationing decisions as we bring new capabilities online. So I think that will help us get after that to where we don't have this mass of unused space while we have needs on the same installation.
All right, I got asked to close this out. So I'll start where I like to always start. We exist to fight and win. Period. There's no buts. There's nothing else after that. We exist to fight and win. We hope we never have to actually do it. I'd love to see all of our grandkids stay in the competition space. But that's not, statistically speaking, that may not be probable. So we have to be ready to fight and win. We are a people-centric platform. The United States, the Army, is people, right? We have tanks, we have helicopters, we have all kinds of stuff. And I'm excited about next gen squad weapon, and I'm excited about all that stuff. But we're in the people business. We are going to close with and destroy the enemy when the nation calls. And so that you can see the scope and scale of what we're trying to do with where we are. We're trying to make the dollar actually worth $1 again, but even maybe worth $1.50. Right now, we're just struggling to make the dollar worth $1 again. And the MILCON reform piece, we touched on that. We're trying to not use sustainment as a bill payer for transformation and modernization. But this is the tension. And I hope you can kind of sense the tension, because I want you to know we're going to be the best stewards possible with our money. If we ask for new authorities, we want accountability. If we ask for flexibility or more money, we want accountability. We want to show you that's the data-centric approach that the chief and the secretary, former secretary, and definitely current secretary. Please come look at our books. We don't want, if we're wanting and needing, we we expect accountability to come with that. That's okay. But we have to transform faster. Please leave here with a sense of urgency. There is no more time. And I will tell you, your Army is doing everything it can to take care of the family, to take care of the warfighter, to make sure we're ready in 2030. But we got to be able to fight tonight, because that's the reason we exist. Really appreciate all of you. This will defend.
Well,